Let's move on to the next chapter where we deal with the most common kidney disease which we come across our routine clinical practice. So that is acute kidney injury. Now coming to the management part. You have a AKI, how to manage it. So there are, you can categorize them into non-dialytic approach and dialytic management. So non-dialytic management usually includes, if the renal failure is not severe, management of hyperkalemia or hyperphosphatemia or low calcium, correction of fluid overload, or correction of acidosis. Okay, so usually these are the interventions which we try in and try to maintain a normal fluid, electrolyte and acid-base disturbances. So non-dialytic management of AKI usually covers and relates to management of these issues. When these issues can no longer be managed medically, okay, so there is refractory hyperkalemia, acidosis is persisting, there is a gross fluid overload, patient is in pulmonary edema and he is not responding to diuretics. So in these situations it mandates that you should not continue the non-dialytic efforts. That this is where the role of renal replacement therapy comes in. So dialysis is indicated in these situations. Absolute indications like volume overload, which is not responsive to diuretics, refractory hyperkalemia despite all the anti-K measures that you have been given, severe metabolic acidosis, okay, and overt uremic symptoms like somebody has encephalopathy or is flapping or has developed pericarditis and there is uremic bleeding diathesis. These are all classic and absolute indications for starting dialysis. Relative indications like progressive azotemia without uremic manifestations. This is without uremic manifestations. Okay. So this we often come across these kind of situations. So we are working in ICU. Patient is critically ill. His burn is rising daily, but he is not symptomatic with uremia. So and often our intensive care colleagues, they pressurize us start off dialysis. I mean, it's not because of their pressure we start. And whenever the blood urea nitrogen goes up beyond this level, it is generally contributes to worsening clinical status. Okay, so a burn level of more than 90, usually we take it as a cutoff for practice. Okay, for practice reasons, we generally start dialysis. In fact, we have a coded term like burn dialysis. Okay, so patient is not symptomatic but has a high burn. So this is a joke. We call it as a burn dialysis. So with respect to RRT, you should know several points: timing, dose, frequency of dialysis, access, anticoagulation, and modality of dialysis. So let us go to it one by one. So there are many studies which have carried out trials comparing early initiation of dialysis versus late initiation of dialysis. There are so many trials. Okay, so no trial could prove either of the modalities were beneficial in effect of mortality at 30 days or so on and so forth. So there is no clear benefit of early or late starting initiation of dialysis. But what the KDIGO says, read this. It suggests that RRT, renal replacement therapy, be initiated emergently, that at emergency as an emergency RRT whenever there is a life-threatening changes in fluid, electrolyte and acid base exists. Okay, so whenever there is a compelling point, just start dialysis. Okay, so there is no point going with evidence of early dialysis or late dialysis because they are not conclusive. And when to terminate dialysis? Renal replacement therapy can be terminated easily when the calculated creatinine clearance is more than 20 ml. Okay, between 10 to 20 is a gray area. Okay, so if the creatinine clearance is more than 20, definitely that is one of the pointers telling you that RRT is no longer required. Now let us look at the dose of dialysis. So dose of dialysis they have looked at in intermittent hemodialysis as well as CRRTs. In intermittent dialysis, the conclusion is dialysis dose of 3.9 per week is what is recommended. This is in intermittent hemodialysis. Whereas in CRRT, there is something like low volume dialysis or high volume CRRTs. Low volume CRRT and high volume, which involves 20 to 25 liters and here 30 to 45 liters of replacement fluid. So there are systematic studies which have compared low volume CRRT and high efficiency, low efficiency and high efficiency, or low volume or high volume CRRTs, and there was no significant difference in the terms of mortality benefit. Okay, so generally the practice is to stick with 20 to 25 ml of replacement effluent volume. Okay, now what should be the ideal frequency for hemodialysis? Again, there are studies which have done 6 days a week dialysis, 5 days a week dialysis, 3 days a week, 3 days in a week dialysis. So they have compared all these methods. So intensified dialysis versus standard intermittent alternate day dialysis. Again, no survival benefits, right? And to achieve KT by V, this is the dosing. KT by V target of 3.9 per week. This will compel us to use a thrice weekly regimen where in each dialysis we target a dose of 1.3 KT by V. Okay, so if we do this 1.3 KT by V every dialysis, we do it for 3 times in a week, we can easily achieve the recommended target of 3.9. So frequency ideally would be intermittent thrice weekly hemodialysis. Access could be, access is, what is the access to perform hemodialysis? Like a internal jugular catheter, a subclavian catheter, or a femoral catheter. The preferred access will be internal jugular catheter. Okay, femoral is less preferred. However, if a patient is in frank pulmonary edema, has orthopnea, is not able to lie down, okay, is not even able to lie down even to 45 degrees. So in those situations where we cannot put him to lying down position and we have to initiate him on hemodialysis as urgently as possible, we choose femoral access. Okay, otherwise the preferred dialysis access will still be the internal jugular catheter. Now coming to modality of dialysis. Which are the different modalities of dialysis? Intermittent hemodialysis, the CRRTs, the prolonged intermittent renal replacement therapy, or acute peritoneal dialysis. Let us discuss this in upcoming slide. So we have discussed intermittent hemodialysis. Generally we do a thrice weekly intermittent dialysis, trying to achieve a target of 3.9 KT by weekly KT by V. The problem with intermittent hemodialysis is there is rapid solute transport exchange that is occurring when we are doing a dialysis. So this rapid shifts in solute and fluid will make it or make the person prone for intradialytic hypotension. Okay, so intradialytic hypotension is much more common with intermittent hemodialysis, especially when there is rapid fluid removal, and also there will be rapid solute clearance. So there are several modalities in CRRT: continuous veno-venous hemodialysis, continuous veno-venous hemofiltration, and a combination of this is hemodiafiltration. So I will be explaining in detail what are they, how to do it, what are the advantages in a session where I exclusively deal with renal replacement therapy. But for the sake of understanding, hemodialysis is just like intermittent CVV HT is just like intermittent HT. The HT process is the same, but we are doing it continuously, hours together for 24 hours, 36 hours, right? So that's why it's called a continuous hemodialysis. Hemofiltration is one particular mode of replacement therapy where we don't use dialysate. In hemodialysis and CVVHD, we use dialysate. Okay, so we pass the blood against the dialysate. That is where the solute and fluid exchange occurs. But with this hemofiltration, we don't use dialysis. Okay, we use what is called as a replacement volume. Okay, how much replacement volume is used is as I discussed previously, it could be 20 to 25. We have to target. We have to use replacement fluid and remove the effluent volume. So it is the amount of effluent volume we are looking at to calculate the dose of dialysis, right? So we just use a replacement fluid. And how this helps in dialysis? Whenever we give replacement fluid, okay, we are putting a lot of solvent into the blood compartment. So there is a movement of solute occurs by a process of convection, solvent drag. So these solutes are dissolved in the solvent, in this case a replacement fluid. By virtue of movement of this fluid across the dialyzer, will drag all the solutes, okay, along with it. This is called solvent drag. Okay, so that is the convective transport which is employed with CVVHF. Combination of these two processes is nothing but hemodiafiltration, where both dialysate as well as replacement fluid is used to where both the solute removal process of diffusion and convective forces are employed. Okay, and none of the modalities are considered to be inferior or superior when it comes to the choice of CRRT mode when you are using it in AKI. And the best advantage of this CRRT is especially when you are dealing with a patient with a significant brain injury or a very gross cerebral edema, CRRT, by virtue of avoiding rapid solute shifts, will prevent worsening of further brain injury. So this is ideally suitable when you are dealing with patients who have a brain injury or patients who are in very much shock, very bad shock, where the systolic blood pressures are like 70, 80, with needing a very stiff dose of inotropic support. And where if we, in that situation, if we try to do a regular hemodialysis, even the slightest fluid removal or a solute exchange can cause worsening hypotension, right? So these events doesn't occur in CRRTs. So somebody who is in shock, multi-organ dysfunction, has a significant brain injury, if you ask me, that given the ideal choice for modality of dialysis, I would choose CRRTs. Then acute peritoneal dialysis. So we can do peritoneal dialysis with in cases of AKI. The best advantages are that it doesn't need a vascular access. Putting a vascular access, it by itself has its own complications, right? So there is no need for a vascular access. Okay, and there is no extracorporeal circuit. It doesn't need a blood to go out of the body, get into a circuit like a dialyzer and come back. There is no need for a extracorporeal circuit. This is the reason why we use anticoagulation. Okay, so because the blood is getting into the extracorporeal circuit, we anticoagulate so that the blood doesn't clot in this circuit. Okay, so somebody who is sick, is multi-organ dysfunction, has coagulopathy, even a small amount of anticoagulation will be detrimental to this patient. So one of the advantages of acute PD in these cases is that there is no need for a anticoagulation, and it is easy to do process in a resource scant dialysis settings. Okay, there are no resources. There is a PD catheter, just put in a catheter, put in fluid, transfuse it, and start off with dialysis. However, it might not be ideal, okay, because solute clearances may be inferior when you compare it to the other forms of hemodialysis. So, and you really cannot control the ultrafiltration, how much fluid you want to remove, that is not in your hand. Okay, you cannot control it. So these are some of the disadvantages of acute PD in acute kidney injury. They have actually compared all of these modalities, IHD, CRRTs, PD, especially IHD and PD. They have compared hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis, which modality was better. Again, there are no clear-cut winner. Okay, so if there is a question which is the ideal modality of hemodialysis, if they give you options of IHD, PD, and both, I would still choose a both option. There is no proven finding that this modality is definitively better than PD. But in practically, when somebody is in shock, somebody doesn't have a vascular access, or patient with dialysis, all multiple access failure, so we end up turning to peritoneal dialysis. Okay. PIRRT, what does this mean? Prolonged intermittent renal replacement therapy. This is nothing but we are doing a hemodialysis in a prolonged and slow way, so that we don't remove the solutes rapidly. We don't remove the ultrafiltration, that is fluid removal, rapidly. We do it slowly and steadily. So this is very much helpful in patients who are again hemodynamically unstable, right? So SLED is, you can expand it as sustained low efficiency dialysis. EDD is extended duration dialysis. SLED-F is when you combine with ultrafiltration. Basically, these are all one and the same. Okay, so somebody call it SLED, somebody calls it EDD, somebody calls it SLED-F. Okay, so SLED is PIRRT means SLED. SLED means prolonged intermittent therapy, and SLED is the one we commonly use, and in our common language, common parlance, that when we write the orders, SLED for 8 hours, SLED for 10 hours, SLED for 6 hours. So this is what we use. So advantages of this SLED is slower ultrafiltration and solid clearance, means the hemodynamic tolerance is better. Okay, and the degree of metabolic control what you achieve with SLED is comparable to that of CRRT, right? So this is about the different modalities of RRT which are employed in a case of AKI.